Good to see you again. This is Arirang News, live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. In light of the recent cyber attack on Sony Pictures, U.S. President Barack Obama is considering putting North Korea back on Washington's terror watch list. He described the hacking incident as an act of cyber vandalism. For our top story, here's Connie Lee.
Do you think this was an act of war by North Korea?
U.S. President Barack Obama says no, he doesn't think so. But he did call the North Korean-linked cyber attack on Sony Pictures an act of cyber vandalism.
No, I don't think it was an act of war. I think it was an act of cyber vandalism that was very costly, very expensive.
Speaking on CNN's State of the Union with Candy Crowley, President Obama emphasized his earlier stance that the U.S. will take action and respond accordingly to this hack attack against the movie The Interview. It was last month when Sony Pictures suffered a massive cyber attack by hackers who demanded the studio's comedy film on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un not be released. This prompted Sony to cancel its Christmas Day release amid fear of more threats. The FBI linked the hacking to North Korea on Saturday, but the communist state continues to deny any involvement. President Obama, however, is considering redesignating North Korea as a state that sponsors terrorism.
We've got to work with the private sector, and the private sector has to work together to harden their sites. But in the meantime, when there's a breach, we have to go after the wrongdoer.
He also called on Congress to pass a cybersecurity law to protect private sectors in the U.S. So will The Interview ever be released? A lawyer for Sony Pictures, speaking to NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, did say that the film will be distributed, but in what format is still unknown. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
But North Korea has flat out denied any involvement in the hacking attack since the beginning and is now outraged by the U.S. accusation. The regime has released a strong statement vowing to retaliate against Washington. Shin Se-min has more on Pyongyang's reaction.
North Korea isn't just denying a hand in the cyber attack on Sony Pictures, they're threatening to retaliate for the mere suggestion that they were involved. In a statement posted Sunday, Pyongyang's National Defense Commission said it fully stands in confrontation with Washington in all war spaces, including the one on the web. The statement even threatens to blow up the White House, the Pentagon, and all of the U.S. mainland if President Barack Obama retaliates over the last month's Sony cyber hack. As for who was responsible for carrying out the attack on Sony, which set off a series of events that led to the theatrical release of The Interview being canceled, the North Korean regime said they had clear evidence that the Obama administration was involved in making the film. They also stressed again that the hackers worked on their own. The statement says they don't know who or where the hackers are, but praised their attack as a righteous action and that they're supporters and sympathizers of the North. South Korea didn't escape blame in the statement. The regime said it had never carried out a single hacking attack and that all cyber attack-related incidents were orchestrated by Seoul. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The U.S., in the meantime, has reportedly asked China to help rein in North Korea's ability to launch cyber attacks. Citing senior U.S. officials, the New York Times reported over the weekend that Washington has reached out to Beijing, which is a key provider of North Korea's internet access. Watchers say it remains to be seen whether Beijing will give a positive response to this request, though, as the U.S. had linked Chinese government hackers to multiple cyber attacks in the past. The report goes on to say that American officials see this as a chance to work with China on, quote, establishing the rules of the road for acceptable behavior in cyberspace. And staying with North Korea, it has yet to officially answer Russia's offer for leader Kim Jong-un to visit Moscow next year. Regional experts say Kim might use this as an opportunity to prompt a summit between Pyongyang and Beijing. For the details, here's Son Jung-in.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has invited the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to Moscow next year to mark the 70th anniversary of his country's victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. Many experts say this could be an opportunity for Kim to establish a solid foothold as a leader. It would also help Pyongyang strengthen its ties with Russia, a permanent veto-wielding member of the UN Security Council, against international criticism on its human rights abuses and nuclear program. North Korea's current weakened relations with China is making Kim even more keen to find a friendly and powerful ally. China, which has taken issue with the North's nuclear arms testing and missile development, has stalled summit talks with Pyongyang for 3 years. Still, it's paying great attention to Kim's possible visit.
Russia has invited North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, among other leaders, to Moscow for the 70th anniversary of the Soviet defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II.
While some speculate Kim may make the visit to Russia as an attempt to prompt a summit between Pyongyang and Beijing, others remain skeptical as Kim has never made a foreign visit since taking power in 2011. There is also the possibility that a visit to Russia may worsen North Korea's relations with China at a time when the North is in desperate need of its help as it's been forced into a corner over its recent cyber attack on Sony Pictures and its abysmal human rights situation. Meanwhile, as South Korean President Park Geun-hye has also been invited to Russia for its celebration, it remains to be seen how the anticipated gathering of the world leaders will pan out. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on Arirang.
A hacker or a group of hackers who have claimed responsibility for leaking documents that belong to the country's nuclear power company released even more on Sunday. The state-run firm keeps saying everything's under control, but the hacker is threatening to release a trove of other information if his demands are not met by Thursday. For the latest, here's Connie Kim.
A 2-day-long cybersecurity drill has begun at 4 of the nation's nuclear power plants in light of the recent hacking of sensitive information from nuclear reactors in Korea. The Energy Ministry will work with various agencies such as the Nuclear Safety and Security Commission to make sure the Korean Walsung power plants are safe from any potential cyber attacks. Over the 2 days, the ministry will review how the leaked information could impact the plants and perform security checks. The unidentified hacker leaked more information about the facilities over the weekend and threatened more leaks if the government does not shut down some of its reactors by Christmas. The freshly leaked data includes floor maps, operation manuals, and safety reports from the state-run Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Company and information on the Kori 2 and Walsung 1 reactors. While authorities say the information released until now should pose no threat, the hackers' threat to release tens of thousands of pages of new data, including blueprints and other classified information, could be devastating. Calling himself the president of the anti-nuclear reactor group, the hacker said the joint investigation team should stop its probe into the hack attack if it cares about the safety of the people. The same hacker is reported to have requested that the nuclear power company compensate some 1,000 residents who are thought to have got thyroid cancer from living in close proximity to the plants. The safety of the nation's aging nuclear power plants is a big concern in Korea, as operations at various reactors have been halted several times this year alone. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
In politics, the 5 unified Progressive Party lawmakers who are now stripped of their parliamentary seats following the Constitutional Court's historic decision last week to disband the party have vowed to take legal action. The party's seats at the provincial level will also be taken away. Ji Myung-gil has more.
The National Election Commission decided on Monday to strip 6 members of the now disbanded Unified Progressive Party from their seats in provincial legislatures. All 6 were appointed under the proportional representation system. Political watchers expected they would be removed as 2 proportional representatives lost their seats last Friday after the Constitutional Court ordered the dissolution of the UPP. 5 UPP lawmakers lost their seats in the National Assembly in that ruling. Under the court's order, 3 of the vacant seats will be filled during by-elections set for April, while the 2 proportional representative seats will remain vacant until the next general election in 2016. All 5 of the UPP sitting lawmakers that were kicked out of the National Assembly last week have said they will file a lawsuit against the state. They claim the Constitutional Court does not have the right to remove them from the legislature, as there's no law that stipulates the status of lawmakers in a case where a party is dissolved. Last Friday's ruling comes more than 400 days after the Justice Ministry filed a petition last year following the arrest of a number of UPP members on rebellion and conspiracy charges. Several UPP members, including former lawmaker Lee Seok-gi, were convicted of plotting to overthrow the government in the event of a war with North Korea. Kim Young-git, Arirang News.
In international news, we are getting more information about the weekend shooting death of 2 NYPD officers. The African-American suspect, apparently motivated by the Eric Garner case, was reportedly described by his own family members as a violent person. Kim Min-ji has the details.
People gathered at a makeshift memorial in New York on Sunday for 2 police officers shot dead by a man who later took his own life. It's believed the gunman, identified as 28-year-old Ismail Brinsley, may have been seeking revenge for the death of Eric Garner, an unarmed black man who died in July after being put into a chokehold by a white police officer. The 2 officers killed over the weekend were shot execution-style from behind while sitting in their police car. The deceased suspect, who shot and wounded his former girlfriend on the same day, had previously posted angry anti-police messages on social media. His postings were followed with hashtags referencing Garner and Michael Brown, a black teenager shot and killed by a white officer in Ferguson, Missouri. In light of the assassination-style killings and lingering tensions over police tactics, some police representatives expressed anger toward New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, saying he was not very supportive in the face of public anger.
There's blood on many hands tonight. Those that incited violence on the street under the guise of protest, that tried to tear down what New York City police officers did every day. We tried to warn, it must not go on, it cannot be tolerated. That blood on the hands starts on the steps of City Hall in the office of the mayor.
In a separate development, a veteran police officer was also shot and killed on Sunday in the state of Florida. Police say Officer Charles Kondak was gunned down in Tarpon Springs while responding to a call. They say a 23-year-old suspect was taken into custody after fleeing the scene and crashing into a pole and another vehicle, but didn't provide details about a possible motive. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The Finance Ministry says it will maintain its expansionary policy for the new year, trying to step out of a sluggish economic recovery. It also introduced comprehensive structural reform measures today for the coming year. Arirang's Hwang Ji-hye breaks it down for us.
The Finance Ministry on Monday lowered its 2014 growth outlook to 3.4% and that of next year's to 3.8%, citing still sluggish domestic demand. To pull the economy out of its low-growth rut, the government's economy management plan for next year will put emphasis on structural reforms while maintaining its expansionary policy.
Structural changes will focus on the labor, education, financial, and public sectors so that human resources and money, which are an economy's key elements, can be distributed efficiently.
The government will seek ways to raise the female labor participation and better utilize the foreign workforce, while educational reform will place emphasis on enhancing vocational training. It plans to promote apprenticeship programs where students in college or in vocational schools can receive training directly from related companies. The government will cut red tape in the financial sector and promote the use of IT at banks and other financial institutions to foster the so-called fintech. Under the government plan, policymakers will also tackle pressing risks head-on. One major task is diffusing threats posed by snowballing household debt.
The government will use a state housing fund to switch roughly $35 billion of short-term loans, carrying floating rates into longer-term fixed-rate loans.
For the corporate sector, the government will introduce new measures to speed up the debt restructuring process. The move will allow troubled companies to begin workout programs before their financial health becomes irreparable. And through the structural changes, the government aims to lay the groundwork for sustainable economic growth, hopefully making 2015 a turning point for regaining economic vitality. Hwang Ji-ae, Arirang News.
Well, global investment banks have also lowered their growth forecasts for the Korean economy next year. Now it stands at 3.5%. 28 financial institutions tracked by Seoul-based Yonhap News have slashed their forecasts by an average of 0.3 percentage points. They point to sluggish domestic demand and unfavorable conditions that may harm exports, citing the slow recoveries in China and Europe, coupled with the weakening Japanese yen. With Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe winning the recent snap election, the investment banks expect his quantitative easing measures to continue next year. Now, Korea has more than a dozen bilateral free trade pacts secured, but the Trade Ministry is looking to lock in even more deals this coming year, including a number of so-called mega FTAs. Song Ji-sun has more.
2014 could be remembered as the year of free trade deals for South Korea. Over the past 12 months, Seoul has concluded negotiations with China, Canada, New Zealand, and Vietnam, with an FTA with Australia taking effect. Add all of them up, and Korea has 15 FTA agreements with a total of 52 nations that account for 73% of the global economy. For 2014, Seoul's focus was on wrapping up bilateral free trade deals. For the coming year, it's on sealing multilateral and regional pacts. According to officials at Trade Ministry, Korea's goal is to ink a trilateral deal with China and Japan before the end of 2015. The government says it will approach the trilateral pact, now entering a third year of negotiations, looking for a term similar to those contained in the Korea-China FTA. Seoul also hopes agreements can be reached for the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which involves the 10 ASEAN member countries, along with India, Australia, and New Zealand, Korea, China, and Japan. As for the Trans-Pacific Partnership led by the U.S., Seoul signaled an interest in joining negotiations last year. The government says it will look into the possibility of doing that as soon as possible after the deal is signed. The government sees this aggressive push for free trade deals as a means for fostering future growth through exports, which is at the heart of the government's three-year economic reform plan. In a meeting with businessmen last week, President Park Geun-hye ordered a new focus on signing additional FTAs with emerging economies as well. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
If you ask any Seoulite what the capital's biggest fashion hub is, you will most likely be returned with an answer saying Dongdaemun, fashion town. And with foreign tourists flooding into the shopping center every year, its presence is rapidly expanding into overseas markets as well. Park Ji-won has this week's Industry Insight.
You can't talk about Korea's fashion industry without mentioning the Dongdaemun fashion market. Dongdaemun Fashion Town is the largest clothing market in Korea, and about 1/3 of all Korea's clothing distributors are based near the region. From textiles and clothing subsidiary materials to sewing factories and wholesale and retail shops, If it has to do with clothing and fashion, you will find it here. A designer's idea can be made into a final product in just a day. Let's take a look. This is Dongdaemun Fashion Town, the location of more than 30 fashion malls and tens of thousands of small clothing shops.
It's really amazing, all the districts, all the fashion is really nice.
I sometimes see items with unique designs that I cannot find at brand or department stores.
Retail shops are open from midnight or 2 a.m. and wholesale shops open from 8 p.m. to the next morning, meaning the market operates 24 hours a day. What's peculiar to the district is that it's like a complete fashion ecosystem where everything about fashion is clustered together. Thousands of fabric and clothing subsidiary shops and more than 20,000 small sewing factories are all nearby. Designers can turn their ideas into clothes in just a day by making a sample. And once the design is confirmed, mass production can start after another day or two. With Dongdaemun's fast yet sophisticated designs gaining global recognition, many orders now come from abroad.
Now we get many sample making orders from China as Chinese buyers visit Dongdaemun often.
The Dongdaemun district makes more money from exports than domestic sales, especially in the wholesale market.
Roughly 60% of the town's annual revenue comes from exports. International buyers are mostly from China, Taiwan, and Japan.
The fashion town also serves as a testbed for many up-and-coming designers.
Here's a hip fashion mecca where you can make and sell clothes. The region helps in my market research and market sourcing.
Some designers have successfully grown from single shops to fashion empires. This modern brand began from a shop in Dongdaemun, but has expanded to include dozens of shops in China.
Cotis Combined started as a shop in Dongdaemun in 2002. Now we have many products in many categories, particularly menswear, underwear, and a kids' clothing line.
Fashion group Hyungji, which has the #1 market share in women's clothes as a domestic company, also started as a humble shop in Dongdaemun Market in the early 1980s.
The founder of the group still emphasizes the so-called Dongdaemun spirit, which is characterized by designs that are ahead of their time in order to survive the fierce competition, thorough product management, and affordable prices.
The Dongdaemun fashion market has served as a breeding ground for clothing businesses and designers ever since the end of Korean War. Thanks to the market's unique features and its vibrant energy, Korea's leading fashion hub now attracts millions of people from both inside and outside of the country. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Today is called Dongji here in Korea, which is the winter solstice. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Most of the snow from the morning has cleared. However, Jeollado and Gangwon-do provinces are still being affected by the clouds that's coming from the west regions. Now, this is expected to continue throughout the day with up to 3 centimeters of accumulation, while other surrounding inland regions are expecting less than 1. Now, cold temperatures continue as well. However, it looks like we'll rise above the freezing point today, sneaking back up to the seasonal averages. But precipitation-wise, this is all the snow we'll get this year. Actually, this week, rather. And so no white Christmas this year. And to our readings for today, Seoul will be at 1 this afternoon, while Gwangju and Busan will be higher at 5 and 7 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island peaks to 7, Dokdo hits a bit lower at 2 degrees, while Mangungang drops low to -6. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park, and have a wonderful day.
And that's it at this hour. From me and the rest of our team in Seoul, thank you very much for staying with us. We'll be back with more updates at 6 p.m. Korea time.